Hello everybody and welcome to Langer's Legion. I'm Langer and let's talk Star Wars Legion. Just a few days ago, AMG posted on their blog post via their Star Wars transmission the announcement of the forthcoming Tempest Force battle force. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. It's not like the Empire needed a third battle force, but we are just about a week away from the release of the Ewoks. And of course, we're trending along the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. So Tempest Force coming out about now seems about right. And granted, it does appear to be a print and play from the announcement. It did not say if there was going to be like a unit or whatever where you could buy like a card pack. So as long as you already own the units, which we'll get into in a moment, it should be a pretty low cost barrier to entry, at least if you're an Empire player. Minus one kind of detail. And for those of you that might not have seen it, I did a review of the upcoming Ewok units as well as the Battle Force, the quote-unquote Bright Tree Battle Force, and I'll post that link somewhere up here just in case you're not familiar or you missed it. So before we jump into the actual details of the Battle Force itself, you might be thinking, what is a Tempest Force? Well, I'm going to let Emperor Palpatine explain that because he could probably do a better job than I can.
It was I who allowed the Alliance to know the location of the shield generator. It is quite safe from your pitiful little band. An entire legion of my best troops awaits them.
As the Emperor said, Tempest Force is supposed to be an elite strike force of units sent to Endor to protect the shield generator from Rebel assault or whatever that was protecting the not fully built second Death Star. Now granted, as we saw in the movie, maybe they weren't too elite because they were beat by a bunch of murder bears with rocks and logs. But if you're interested in more details around Tempest Force itself, because it's not really called out that way in the movie, you've got to get into more of the books or some of the other card games or something like that that actually came out in the 90s. I'll post a link below in the Star Wars Wikipedia page because there's a lot of good details in there. I, for one, learned that like some of the biker troops actually had names and ranks of sergeant and so on and so forth. And then one of the units we're going to discuss gets called out and mentioned specifically kind of in this lore section. But let's get into what we're here for, the actual details of Tempest Force. So like all battle forces, Tempest Force has a set of unique rules that kind of goes along with this battle force methodology. So the first thing is all vehicles in Tempest Force get a Scout 2 on deploy, and again we'll get into what vehicles are allowed in the battle force here in a couple seconds. Units that are not in range of a commander and do not have a comms upgrade equipped actually can't remove one suppression at the end of the round. So suppression, just kind of like what we saw with the Ewoks, they're going to kind of come into play with this battle force. So you're going to want to either stay close to the commanders or you're going to need to add a comms upgrade, which I kind of played around with in a list that I'll show you here at the end of the video. So you're maybe looking at HQ uplink, you're looking at emergency transponder, something like that. But you are going to have to basically burn, 4 to 5 points or more, depending on which one you'd pick, to kind of combat this suppression. And the other thing is during the deploy steps, this battle force gets the rapid reinforcement kind of deployment model built in. So you can actually set aside one unit during the deployment round like you would in rapid reinforcements. And as you're deploying units and thinking about where to put things, when you get into the first round, once you start pulling those tokens for units to activate, once you pull that token for that unit type that you can no longer move on the board because you've used them all, you can then place that unit on the board. And again, just like rapid reinforcements, that will be with a face down order token. That way the unit is already treated is activated. So those are kind of the 3 battle force rules that come with Tempest Force. But remember, one thing for this one is it's not required. This is optional. Obviously, if you're doing the rapid reinforcements deployment strategy or gameplay, that's required. This for Tempest Force is optional. So if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, depending on your army makeup, maybe it won't make any sense. Speaking of units and the army itself, let's talk about what you can equip because it's a pretty narrow set of unit types. For the commander slot, you only get one unit type, and that is Ruthie, or the ruthless commander, as I call her Ruthie. I've heard her referred to as Becky, but that is the only commander unit that you can select for this battle force. Now, granted, you can have up to 2 of them. Ruthie is still somewhat pretty low cost. She did get a recent point updates. I think she went from 40 to 50 if I recalled. But I don't think you're gonna, you might not even take Ruthie, let alone take two. And we'll get into a little bit of that in a second. For your core unit, you only have one option, and that is Stormtroopers, shockingly enough. Hopefully we've all seen the movie. You kind of know what made Tempest Force, and I'll show an image of the Force here. But you have to take one Stormtrooper unit. Got to have at least one core unit. But you can't have more than three. So just know that 1 to 3 is the option there. For Special Forces units that aren't allowed is the Scout Trooper units. And there's a little key here is you can't actually take the strike team units. So no two-man sniper units. It's got to be full squads or full units of Scout Troopers. And you are required to take at least 2 units. And you can take up to 6. So I haven't done the math on that yet, but 6 units of Scouts probably be pretty expensive. I'm not sure how much of that we would see on the table because this battle force, as you're going to see, is very vehicle focused. And I think you might be limiting yourself if you took that many Special Forces units. And then for support, what else would it be? It's speeder bikes. We are talking about the Battle of Endor, and we're talking about a vehicle-heavy list. So you do get to take speeder bikes. You don't have to, and if you do, you can take up to 3, kind of the standard rules. And then finally, kind of what makes this battle force special, and like I said in the opening, depending on what you own, you might be able to play this unless you want to go this route, is you can take heavies. Obviously, it's the ATST, but in this battle force, you can take up to 3 of the chicken walkers, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit when we talk unit cards, right? So you can take 3 ATSTs loaded to the teeth at around, I think what's that, about 200 points a piece. So you can get 600 points, spend those other 200 points across, like we talked about the core, your commander or whatnot. But seeing 3 ATSTs on the tabletop might be a little scary. The Battle Force does come, like I said, or does have 2 sets of command cards. You have kind of like, let's call it the generic Battle Force, Tempest Force named cards. And then you've got a set of cards that do come with the named unit, which is Major Marquand, that we'll get into, who is piloting the ATST. And for the command cards, you do get, on the Battle Force side, you get 1 pip, 1 2 pip, and 1 3 pip. And since I don't have them memorized, I'm going to read them off, and I'm having to look off screen a little bit to give you the full read. So we're going to do that here. So the 1 pip is titled Drive Them Out, and it lets you assign an order token to 1 vehicle. And the card does read, friendly vehicles gain Demoralize 1 this round. This round, the first time a friendly vehicle with a face-up order token displaces an enemy unit during its activation, roll a white defense dice for each miniature in the enemy unit. For every surge or block, that enemy unit suffers 1 wound. So this is going to be, I feel like a card that you're going to play early, not early on, but for the 1 pip to kind of hand out some suppression, right? You're going to be close. If you're doing that thematic, battle against the Ewoks, if you've seen the Ewoks, they do have a lot of skirmishers where they are going to be kind of in clear contact. So you're going to be able to kind of like, unfortunately, like stomp on them a little bit. So you're going to be able to dish out some wounds. And obviously the Demoralize is a good way to hand out some suppression tokens of range 1 to 2. Because again, if we're talking about just the Ewok side of things, they kind of have the same mechanic when it comes with suppression, are very similar to this Battle Force, where they don't get to remove suppression at the end of a round, right, natively. So we have to have a comm link in Tempest Force. They can't remove them. So Inspire, being close to a commander for both of these, is going to be kind of interesting. For the 2 pip card, it is called We Need Reinforcements, and it reads, friendly units that have a face-up order token gain Disengage this round. Now, disengage is great. Basically, if you're engaged in melee combat with somebody, you're going to be able to do a full move action as opposed to just the move 1 to disengage. I'm not sure how valuable this card is. I'm trying to been thinking about it, but I'm not really sure this would be one for a 2 pip that I'd be putting in my command hand, especially if I'm doing again, an Ewok thematic thing, because you can't take any Jedi users in that battle force. But maybe if they're thinking outside of that, if you go up against a regular Rebel list and you've got Luke or something, but I don't know, doesn't seem like a very strong card. The 3 pip is called Constantly Alert, and it reads, when a unit is issued an order with this card, it gains 1 aid token for each enemy unit at range 1. If it not gain any aim tokens, it gets a standby token. So again, You know, with these ATSTs, I don't know how close you're going to want to get within range 1 of folks, because you do have some good range on these, you know, 1 to 2 with the grenade launcher and up to 4 with some of the blasters. But again, I think this has to do with the thematics of the Ewoks and the Bright Tree of being kind of close to close hand-to-hand type combat. So you're going to be able to get some aim tokens, which is always great when you're, you know, rolling double rainbows or using blast or whatever from the ATST, just to kind of re-roll some of those dice. And again, probably going to be really good against Ewoks. Should be good against other armies as well. But again, that range 1 to get that aim token, kind of interesting. You know, maybe you might be bringing up your ATSTs that far forward, but I usually don't. I usually try to keep them at range 2 to 3. And for the second set of command cards, like I mentioned, there is a named ATS card or named unit card called Major Marquand that comes in an ATST, who is a commander. He carries the field commander keyword, which we'll cover here. So you get access to his 3 cards. But before we get into the cards, let's actually talk about his unit and the ATST itself. If you're familiar with the Imperial ATST, none of this should look shocking to you. It's pretty much the same. 11 wounds, 8 resiliency, surge to hit, which you have, if you have the regular Empire ATST, you have to equip the Hammers pilot to get, but I think most folks grab that anyways. It is surge to block, it's got the weak point in the rear, and it's got the normal weapons, the grenade launcher with blast at range 2, throwing 2 black dice, the twin light blaster cannon, which I believe is up to range 3, with impact 1, throwing a single rainbow, so 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black. And then you've got the twin laser, which is the double rainbow, throwing impact 3 at range 3, if I recall. But there's some new keywords on this card as well. You have special issue of Tempest Force, so meaning this unit can only be used with Tempest Force. You have direct vehicle, which we do not see either on the Empire ATST nor the, you know, Chewy ATST that's going to be allowed for the Bright Tree Battle Force, which basically gives you a little bit of order control, right? So you can hand out an order token, a face-up order token from this unit to another nearby vehicle. So maybe you've got the other ATSTs, or maybe you've got some scout bikes, whatever. At least you're always kind of getting one additional face-up order token. And like I said, it does have the field commander keyword, so you don't have to run a commander, aka you don't have to run Ruthie. You can use Major Marquand as your commander for your army. There's not a lot of difference between the two. Obviously, Ruthie has Spotter and Inspire, so you're not going to be handing out that aim or getting that Inspire. But they both only have Courage 2. Ruthie has Courage 2. If you use Field Commander, you have Courage 2 as well. So you're going to kind of deal with suppression the same way. It's just that you're going to lose access to the Inspire and some of those aims, which, based off the points and, again, some of the lists I put together, is probably a fair trade-off if you're going to try and run 3 ATSTs, meaning 2 of the regular Empire ones and then 1 of the Major Marquand. So let's get into his cards. He does have a 1 pip, a 2 pip, and a 3 pip. Again, I'm just going to read these verbatim just to make sure I don't get any errors. So for the 1 pip, we have Gunner Infantry. During his activation, Major Marquand reduces his speed by 1 to a minimum of 1, and then Major Marquand gains Tactical 1 this round, and his weapons gain Suppressive this round. This is a pretty good 1 pip, I think. You get an aim, right? It's always nice to have aims to kind of lower, with that Tactical 1, so you're going to reduce your speed, use Tactical 1 to, do a standard move and get an aim. And then with that Arsenal 2, and with that suppressive add-on keyword, you're probably going to divide your attack pools, right? Because you're going to want to maximize the suppressive keyword. That way you're getting out or handing out as much suppression as possible. Ideally, you're going to get 2 suppression tokens on 2 different units with this attack, as opposed to, condensing all of these into 1 and only handing out 2. Obviously, that might be situational, but I kind of feel like you're going to split fire your weapons with this command card. His 2 pip card is called Squad on Me. At the start of Major Marquand's activation, each other friendly vehicle unit at range 1 of him may perform a free pivot and then make a speed 1 move. I've thought about this one again. I don't know how good this card is. I mean, maybe if you're super aggressive and you're moving those ATSTs forward, or maybe you've moved yourself into a bad piece of terrain or something, you've got to pivot to move. I don't know. There might be situational need to play with it. But this doesn't seem like a strong 2 pip card for me. And finally, we have his 3-pip card titled Armored Cavalry, which has got some great card art. As you can see right here, it does have a AT-AT on it, which I think is pretty neat because Tempest Force, at least per the lore, did have an AT-AT assigned to it. You know, maybe one day we'll see a Legion-based AT-AT, but I doubt it. I mean, there's just obviously some scale issues and firepower issues in armor. But anyways, this card basically allows you to assign to 3 vehicles, right? So again, if you're doing the 3 ATSTs, you're going to be able to give all of them 3 order tokens, or maybe you got some ATSTs and some speeder bikes, so you're going to be able to get some good order control, at least with your vehicles. And the card reads as, when another friendly vehicle begins its activation at range 1 of Major Mark 1, it may choose one of the following effects. If it's in his front arc, it may gain a 1 dodge token. If it's in the side arc, it may gain 1 aim token. And if it's in its rear arc, it may perform a speed 1 move. So this card really feels like you want to be making sure you're pushing, again, let's go back to these ATSTs, or units in general, but you're going to want to be pushing, you know, together, side by side, or maybe a little off skew or front to back, depending if you want the dodge or the aim. Or the speed 1 move, depending on what kind of units you're working with. So this is, again, Armored Cavalry, kind of a very good thematic card. You can keep your core units or those Special Forces units next to these ATSTs, especially with the line of sight blocking rules and the cover rules, were a good way to keep things kind of covered up that way. So that's it for the command cards. With that kind of outlined, I thought I would mess around with some lists and kind of see what we could come together to kind of figure out what an army might look like. And so I put together some armies together with Tabletop Admiral. Basically, my goal was, though, to keep all 3 ATSTs, so by no means is this necessarily optimized. I'm sure people could come up with like a 2 ATST with, you know, 3 speeder bikes or something like that, but I wanted to keep the 3 chicken walkers and kind of see what you would do if you had Ruthie or if you just used Field Commander. So for the first army I put together came out at 7 activations. Again, using the Imperial officer, we've got 1 squad of stormtroopers with the T-21, which is kind of my go-to now with those 2 surge to hits. 2 units of scout troopers. Again, we have to have those scouts per the rules. I did equip those with up close and personal emergency transponder for that comms upgrade, so I can work, kind of hold or take care of some of that suppression. And then finally, I gave them some targeting scopes. I'm not married to these upgrade cards, but as you can see, when you start adding these points together, it's like I couldn't add another unit, so I needed to kind of spread these out a little bit. You know, maybe I give electro binoculars to Ruthie to maybe hand out some more aims. I don't know, they're just kind of was playing around with it. Major Mark 1, you know, at 190 points, of course. No changes there. I mean, he comes, you know, kind of the way he comes. And then I equipped 2 ATSTs, Hammer Pilot, Grenade Launcher, the 88 Twin Light Blaster, right? So kind of exactly the same build out that you get with Major Mark 1. It's just that you got to take the upgrade cards to get there. For the command cards, again, I was playing around with the Tempest Force cards as well as kind of the generic Empire cards. So I took them, drive them out for the Demoralize one and kind of that, like, let's go step on some murder bears. Gunner Infantry, again, with that tactical 1 and suppressive for Major Mark 1. I feel like that's a pretty good card to hand out, again, that suppression and just do some damage. I did the generic push 2-pip, which gives you the 2 unit tokens. So again, I can do trooper units or vehicles with that card, depending on the scenario. Pin down, which I think is I kind of like this one, especially with a vehicle heavy list, which means I can give 2 orders to the ATSTs. And then of course, if I attack anybody on the enemy side that has a face-up order token with those units, those order tokens get put into their bag. So they lose a little bit of order control. And then finally, Assault for the 3-pip, 3 units, you know, again, just I'm trying to give my vehicles as many orders as possible, maybe not focus so much on the trooper units. And then Armored Cavalry, again, kind of give out some of those tokens. Now, again, that can go to the dodge and the aims could go to corp or to vehicles, depending on how you're pushing those things together. So I kind of like this list. 7 activations is pretty light. Yeah, I only have Ruthie in there really to kind of help with the Inspire and the aim tokens. Obviously, you've got the Field Commander with Major Mark 1. That can help with that as well. But the list that I probably would really run is going to be the 7 activations, 792 points. I guess I should say the other list did come in at right around 800 or right at 800. 2 units of Storms with the T-21s for Corp. 2 units of the Scouts, same build out, up close and personal, emergency transponder, targeting scopes, Major Mark 1, again, and of course the 2 ATSTs. And the cards, the command cards, didn't change. I just felt like, again, I'm just wanting to maximize the order control to the vehicles, and then kind of hope between the Scouts and the Corp units, I'll just roll the dice per se and just take a risk by taking those order tokens out of the bag. And the thing is, though, you're going to get no Inspire, no Spotter, so you are going to probably have some suppression challenges, maybe, again, depending if you kind of just move in a clump. Maybe you can use the Field Commander, but you're going to get more firepower. Ruthie, she does have a lot of distance with her gun. She does have Pierce on it, but I'd rather have another squad of Stormtroopers with a T-21 as opposed to Ruthie and just use the Field Commander for Major Mark 1. Well, that does it for this video. Hopefully you made it to the end, and if you found this video appreciative or liked the content, of course, please give me a like. But post down in the comments what you think about Tempest Force, maybe what list you might run, or maybe are you upset that, the Empire got yet another battle force and, there's not a Wookiee battle force. I know a lot of folks have been talking about that, or a Gungan. But just post the comments and feedback below. And until next time, hail to the Empire.